Great. Okay, we're live. So this is normally the talk that I do the first Thursday of every month, but this Thursday I had something that I really wanted to talk about. So we're doing it this Thursday instead. The topic is question and answer. You can ask me anything you want to. Please have it something to do with meditation or our practice in a deep way. Don't ask me how many positions are in a front kick. The standard disclaimer that my Sifu always gives and I always give is this is not the answer. I don't know the answer to anything. I'll give you my best answer today. If you ask me 10 years from now the exact same question, I'll give you a way better answer. And none of these answers are written in stone. I'll pull, things from books that I've read or spiritual texts and scriptures, but that's not to say that whatever I say, like you should take it as law and take that for the rest of your life. That's how I feel about everything that you hear from anybody. Whenever we are doing class and the moon is full and you can see it, and it's usually over there. We can't usually see it at this time of year, but when we're out at the park, I would do this all the time. I would do this scene from Enter the Dragon. If you've not seen this movie, you should. It's like a top 10 best martial arts films. And Bruce Lee is referring to this idea of like Mushin and just being in the moment. And he is kind of berating this student of his who just wasn't like in the moment. He was overthinking things. And he says, it's like the finger pointing to the moon. And the student goes like this and stares at the finger. And Bruce Lee whacks him on the head. He's like, don't stare at the finger and miss all that heavenly glory. So teaching and spiritual text and everybody who pretends to be wise, it's all just the finger pointing to the heavenly glory. It's the thing that is pointing us in the direction that we want to go. So you can forget everything that I said tonight that doesn't help you, but if anything helps, great. Keep it until it doesn't help you anymore and then let go of it then. So any questions? And if you are online, if you're on Zoom, you can raise your digital hand. If you're online here on Facebook or Instagram, you can type it in the comments. And if you're here, you can raise your fleshy hands. I'll start with Frida. Go ahead.
This is actually a two-part question. I hope it's not too much.
A double question. Go ahead.
The first question has to do with the forms. If you could enlighten us and let us know what the origin of the forms are. That's the first part.
Is the second part related to that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, the second part is, what is your reasoning behind the way we learn forms? In other words, why are we relegated to learning forms here and there during open mats or sometime when you have free time after a class, as opposed to having something organized, depending on rank?
This is a very loaded question, Frida. It sounds like you got a bone to pick with the way that we learn forms. So I'll answer your question the way that I choose to tonight. So first of all, the forms that we do, there are many different forms. There are Tai Chi forms, there are Kung Fu forms, and they come from different places. So the forms that you're referring to are the Kung Fu forms, some of which come from very, very long ago. I mean, like over 1,000 years old. Sanshin, for example, is a form that has been made popular in Japanese styles. There's a whole Japanese style of martial arts called Sanshin-ryu. It's just like this form. I've never practiced, so I can't say that that's all that they do. But there are other forms that are more recent, only like 100 or so years old. My Sifu learned many of the forms that we do in Shaolin, and some of them practicing in the rest of his practice. Some of the forms that we do, my Sifu made up. So the partner form, for example, in Tai Chi is one of the most beautiful, complex, and honestly, logistically impossible and impressive forms that I've ever seen. And my Sifu made this for the Tai Chi students. So that's, kind of the general gist of where the forms come from. The weapons forms, most of those come from my Sifu learned them at Shaolin Temple while he was visiting there, and then brought them back to teach us. And the why we do the forms the way that we do them, the general answer for that is because it's the way that I learned the forms, and it worked really well for me. So I hope that it works for you guys. Obviously, if you're doing Tai Chi, it is incredibly organized. We learn them in class, and that's most of what you do the entire class is learning the form. In Kung Fu, there's a little bit more where there's a lot more where it's kind of put on the students to have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit to ask a senior student or ask me to look at your form and help you improve it. And part of the reason for this is, like in Tai Chi, there are different people at different stages of the form. There are some classes where I will actually just pair people up and have a senior student help a junior student in Kung Fu the same way that we do in Tai Chi, but that happens far less often. And it's absolutely not that the forms are an unimportant part of our practice. It's that we have other things that we really need to do in class, whereas the form is something that you should be spending a decent amount of time practicing on your own, right? So you guys are learning, some of you are in Tai Chi only, and you're learning those forms and you're practicing them, I hope, every day on your own, even if it's just for a few minutes. The Kung Fu forms, you should be practicing those on your own as well. I would love for you to do that every day for a few minutes. And a big idea behind this is that you come to class, and maybe before or after class or during open mats, you ask somebody to check your form, they fix it, they add a little bit to it, and then you go home and practice it on your own. And maybe you come to open mats and you practice it in open mats, but you're spending that time working on the form the way that you need to work on it. The form is not the only thing that you should do this way, but it is probably the best example of the part of our practice that we treat in this way, where I am not telling you exactly how to practice your form, because there are different, you're learning different partners. There are different things that you need to focus on. Like I need to focus more on flow, or I need to focus more on power, or I need to focus more on visualization. You got to spend that time on your own, really getting the most out of that area that you need to practice the most. So if we all practice the same thing the same way in class, that's going to kind of get everybody in a general sense, but it won't get at the individual thing that you need to work on. And that's why we have a lot of one-on-one time in Tai Chi, because you really need that help to do exactly what you're doing. And the long and the short of it is, Frida, there are not a lot of people who can help with forms, unfortunately. Anybody who's green and above, that's like fewer than this many people in the dojo. So it's kind of hard to learn it in that way. That's why you got to get it when you can with me or with a senior student. But practice your forms. I practiced, some of you have heard me talk about this before. I would drive an hour to get to my Sifu school in Michigan, and I would come and help out in the kids' class. Then I would do Tai Chi class. And then during the beginner Kung Fu class, before I was a high enough rank to help in that class, I would go outside and practice my forms for an hour. I would practice my forms slowly, visualizing my partners. I would practice them quickly. I would practice them working on flow. And then I would go back inside and do the advanced classes after that. And that obviously made me really good at forms, but it was a time in my life where I was so good at visualizations and so good at focusing my mind, because I spent that hour multiple times a week just doing form and just having nothing else in the way. So if you have a life, I mean, none of you guys are in college, I don't know if none of you are, but I doubt that many of you are in college right now. So you don't have as much free time as I had. I also didn't do a lot of homework when I was in college. I also didn't study a lot when I was in college. I knew I wanted to do martial arts. So I spent my time multiple hours a week doing forms. I don't really think that's realistic for most people, but at least spend a good chunk of time working on your form or working on your basics so that you are getting better at what you as an individual need to get better at. Other question. I'll give a shorter answer probably. Go ahead.
So do you have any advice on I'm trying to figure out how to word it. You're basically optimizing free time because I know I want to do things like meditate and read and challenge the week and watch TV sometimes. Those are things that
Watching TV.
can fulfill the little things I want to do in my life. But I find that I don't have as many hours in a day I like to spend on those things. So do you have advice on how to just balance that better or just do life better?
I'll do my best. Do life better. Okay, so the specific question is about optimizing free time. The general question is, how do I do life better? And you mentioned a couple of things that I hear a lot when people are asking about this type of thing or thinking about it. One of the things is, I wish I had more hours in the day. And I'll tell you, science is moving at a rapid pace these days. I don't think that we're ever going to find more hours in the day. The sun is up for how long it is up. You need to sleep. You should definitely be getting enough sleep. So after sleep and after work, then you got X number of hours or minutes left. So what do you do with that? It sounds for some people like this is kind of counter to what you want to do with your free time. But some of us, and I've been just as guilty of this and needing of this as anybody, some of us need to plan free time. Like, put it in your calendar and set it aside. And this might be, I am specifically setting aside this time to read. And I'm doing it this time of day every single day, or I'm doing it these days of the week during this chunk of time. It might be that I'm setting aside, a chunk of time, whether it be 5 minutes or an hour, where I purposefully have not planned anything. It's a chunk of time where I can just do whatever I feel like doing in that moment. And it might be that I'm watching TV or playing video games. It might be that I'm reading or whatever comes to mind. It might be that I haven't practiced Tai Chi by myself in a little while, so I'm just going to do that. I use the calendar on my phone religiously. I use my Google Calendar and I use it to plan almost everything. And I sometimes will have a chunk of time where it's just open and it is like actually saved in the calendar as don't put anything in here. If you are busy, sometimes you need to do that. Then there is the other side of the spectrum where it's like, I got tons of free time. I have so much free time that free time for me is like living in California and knowing that the beach is right over there and never go to the beach, right? And that's me. I love the idea of going to the beach. I don't go to the beach. Now, personally, I hate getting in the water. It's way too cold for me. So that is a big reason why some people go to the beach. But a lot of us just have this attitude of it's there. So I don't need to go today or this weekend or this month or this year. It's always there. I can just go whenever I feel like it. And then one day you'll have to move away, or one day you'll be on your deathbed and you'll think, I really wish I had spent more time at the beach. And this is kind of how free time goes for us. It happens. And if you are lucky enough to have a decent amount of free time, you waste it. And you get to the end of the day and you're laying in bed and you're thinking, what did I do today outside of work and sleep? I just sat in front of the TV and vegged out. I played Portal 2 for the 10th time this week. Like, what? You want to do something with it. And this is, again, you want to pay attention to the kind of person that you are. If you're the kind of person that is always micromanaging things, then again, set aside that time and just have it be whatever. But if you're the kind of person that just lets things fly and you never really feel like you're making the most of it, then stick that time in your calendar. Whether you use a digital calendar, or you have a physical calendar in front of you, and you want to plan what you're going to do with it. This is my answer today. If you ask me tomorrow, I'll give you a different answer. But I have found, and I think many people have found, that this idea of scheduling free time and choosing what you're going to do with it rather than just winging it is super powerful. Another thing I'll say is we all feel like we wish that we had more hours in the day and it will not happen. Something I heard years ago, which I thought was really brilliant, is people always say, I have too much stuff on my plate. I need to take stuff off of my plate. And this is like an excuse for not taking new things on. And for some of us, that is absolutely true. I know for me, when I heard this other end of that, I thought, yeah, that's actually me. You don't need to take stuff off of your plate. You just need a bigger plate. And a bigger plate might not mean that you are actually finding more hours in the day. And a bigger plate does not mean that I'm getting rid of things. A bigger plate might simply mean that I'm actually using the real estate on that plate that I already have, instead of spending all that time just, vegging out in front of the TV. I'm actually using that for something. So you can create enough time to do so many things that you have always just put off and treat like it's the beach, always there. Other question? Deborah.
How would you feel resistance, especially if, say, you start something new and it hurts and it's hard, and so
That's how you do it. Building resilience. So we could use our Tai Chi practice as an example of this. I don't know if this is what you're referring to. I'm sure it hurts some days, and it's definitely hard some days. But for many people who start Tai Chi, it's difficult to make the schedule work where they're consistently coming. Just getting into the habit of doing it is hard. For some people, it actually is physically hard for your body, whether it's the coordination or getting your body to be able to do the postures. And I will say that nobody starts anything that is really worth it, something that is complex and really has the potential to change our life, something like martial arts practice or meditation practice, Tai Chi. Nobody does that and has it just be smooth sailing, right? The very idea of something having an impact on us is predicated on the fact that it's difficult. There's some struggle there, right? If there's no struggle, if it's just easy, then you're not going to get that much out of it. So that's the preamble. How do we get that resilience, and how do we get beyond the initial stage of just starting it and then actually make it be something that, I'm not going to say permanent, but it's something that we stick to long enough that we really get something out of it. And this is going to sound like a self-serving answer if we're just talking about martial arts, but what you do is you start it and you stick with it. Because if you're able to do it, I'll give you the example in my life. The first thing that I really did this with, where it was like my choice, and I recognized it, and it was something that I was really trying to do, was meditation. I started practicing martial arts with my Sifu when I was 17 years old, and I was a very different person then. I had no ability to stick to anything. I had zero resilience at all. And I was in a meditation class, and he was talking about the benefits of meditation, and it may have been a question and answer, and I heard him talking about this, and I was like, that sounds great. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to meditate every single day. I'm going to meditate every single day this year. It was probably around the new year, and he was talking about setting goals. And I said, that's my goal this year. And it was probably the only goal that I set. And it wasn't like I was meditating for hours a day. I'm pretty sure my goal at that point was to meditate for 20 minutes a day. And I did that. And it was the first thing that I had done every day besides brushing my teeth and taking a shower. I probably even skipped those things that year, at least one day, but I did it every single day. And then looking back on it at the end of the year, it was like, wow, that was a thing that I did. That was great. In the beginning, the first couple of days or maybe even weeks, it wasn't that hard. But after that initial, what we call the honeymoon phase, where it was new and exciting and fresh, and then it became like a chore for a little bit, there was definitely a slog with my meditation practice in the beginning that I had to just get past it. I think for almost everybody, you hit a point like that. And then you you hit the point, you hit your first wall where you come face to face with the ego wanting to give up, or maybe you accidentally miss a day and then your ego is like, oh, I messed up, I'm not going to get it, so I'll just forget it, I'll do it next year. And I've definitely done that with goals in the past for sure. But what we do is we hit the first wall and we either give up, we fall down, we smack into the wall and say, this is as far as we go, or we push through it and we keep going. And then if it's really worth doing, there will be many more walls and you'll keep hitting them and you have to keep pushing through them. And so I like our practice, especially something like meditation. You can practice every day for a few minutes. You can practice Tai Chi every day for a few minutes. A daily something where you get used to having to create that habit and not giving up and continuing on even when it gets tough, especially in the face of the adversity. And starting with something fairly simple and manageable is a great way to do it. If you're like, the first big undertaking that I'm gonna take on, the first big goal that I have is something massive, you know, instead of meditating for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, I'm gonna meditate for an hour every day, you will very likely fail. And then when you fail and you allow yourself to give up, you are creating that habit. The habit is, when things get tough, I give up. And we don't need that habit. We don't need to strengthen that habit. We have it perfectly. It is an innate part of what it is to be a human being, right? We have that using our resources as efficiently as possible, which means things get tough, I take a nap. And we don't need to build more of that up. What we need to build up is resilience. So we practice with something that we're very sure we can do, but we know that it's not going to be easy. And then maybe we get to the end of the year or the end of that time that we set for the goal, and then we can look back on it and say, I did that. I was able to push through and I achieved that. And then the next thing that comes up, instead of looking at it and thinking, I don't think I can do that, you take it on, you say, I've done something, you know, before that was impressive. I surprised myself, so I'm going to surprise myself this time. And then you hit the first wall, and instead of giving up, you say, no, I've been through this before. You push through it. So this is a basic way that we do it in martial arts, like in Kung Fu. You don't go straight like bow in for your first class, and I give you the biggest, meanest guy in class and say, you're sparring them. Go. Because you would run away and never come back. We like stand in line and throw punches in the air. And then I let them hold a piece of foam and you punch the piece of foam. And then eventually we start sparring and doing all the other stuff that is more dynamic and challenging. It's not my experience when I was a kid and I first started martial arts. They just covered us in foam and said, go spar and go have fun. And I was terrible and we were all awful and I hated it and I quit. But we kind of baby step up to that point where we can handle really incredible things. That's how you do it. Now, life will sometimes throw things at you that you are sure that you're not ready for, and you can kind of choose to take them on or not. There will definitely be things that we are not actually ready for. But another thing my Sifu said all the time is the universe only throws at you what it believes you can handle. So if you get something put on your plate, you eat it up. The universe put it there, it knows that you can handle it. Other question? We got a few minutes left. Let's make it a short one. Go ahead.
When you're meditating and you sit down and you realize today's one of those days of a very distracted, chattering mind, what is the best thought that kind of someone will break through that during the meditation?
Yeah. So I'll talk about kind of the will and the resilience in meditation, and also just sneaky ways to not even have to involve the will and motivation. So my general theory on meditation, and this is not going to be mind-blowing to anybody, is my theory on motivation is really nice, If you have it, it certainly makes things easy. If you have to have it, that is where you got a problem, because you will definitely have days where you are not motivated, right? So if we take meditation as an example, if you decide I'm going to meditate, not even in the meditation, just sitting down and starting meditation. If you're like, I'm going to do that when I feel like it, and I don't feel like it, you will increasingly not feel like it, because meditation is very difficult. Your ego does not like sitting there and having to be calm and quiet. So you're going to find ways to get out of it. But if you just decide, this is the thing that I do, however I feel, I'm doing it. That's great. And this is incredibly important, because there will be days that you don't feel like showing up to class. There will be days that you don't feel like meditating. There will be days that you don't feel like brushing your teeth. There will definitely be days that you don't feel like exercising or eating vegetables or whatever. You want to write checks, make big decisions when you are in a great frame of mind. Get to a high state and write a bunch of stuff that you decide that you're going to do, and then do it when you're not in the best frame of mind. Do it when you're not in that highest state. And that is incredibly powerful. If you just decide, I do this thing, and then you just do it, that's incredibly powerful. Now, in meditation, let's say that I've already gotten myself sitting on the cushion, and maybe I have already made it a daily practice, and I got over that initial, wall where I was struggling to make it a habit. I've done it. Wonderful. Some days are going to be great. Some days are not going to be great. Some weeks are not going to be great. Some years are not going to be great. I've had year-long slumps in my meditation where I feel like I'm going backwards. And I've definitely had countless meditations where my mind is going 1,000 miles a minute. There's so many thoughts. They call this the monkey mind. It's not even a monkey mind. It's like a gorilla mind. It's like there's so much going on there that I literally can't sit still, and I can't even keep my eyes closed because my eyes are moving around so fast. So this happens with less and less frequency the more that we practice meditation, but it will still happen. So what do you do when you're in that place? You sit, and it is so rough that you can tell right away, this is not going to be a great meditation. This is going to be one of those meditations. Some people, not me, say that you should just be done with that meditation. And I absolutely understand and can agree with a part of this. The major problem that I have with deciding if my mind is busy, then I'm just not going to meditate, is that then every time you go to sit on the cushion, your ego is going to start to be like, wait a minute. If I just put up enough of a fight, if I get busy enough, then he's going to get up and stop meditating. It's exactly what your ego wants. That is like what your monkey mind wants most desperately, is for you to not sit there and meditate. So if you give in to that, it's a real slippery slope. Now, there will be times where it's just not happening. What I like to do personally is just sit through it. And it's not usually a really great meditation, but there are ways that we can mitigate that. So that piece of advice is not going to work for everybody. And especially if you really, really struggle meditating under good circumstances, I'm not going to pretend that everybody is just going to sit and just gut through a meditation, but it is ideal in my mind, in my experience, to sit. Now, what we want to be able to do is get the most out of that meditation. And in fact, kind of like building resilience, having a difficult start to the meditation is sometimes the best for building the kind of resilience or building the ability to quiet your mind. It is the most from one perspective, the most powerful meditation you will have is one that starts off real busy, lots of thoughts. But then if you are able to quiet the mind, then you're really getting a lot out of it, right? It's like lifting weights. If you go there and you just lift like 5 pounds and it's really easy, you're not getting anything out of it. Just like if you sit to meditate and you're just instantly in a beautiful state of mind, there's something that you're missing out of your meditation practice if you never have a struggle. Luckily for us, we will all struggle from time to time or a lot of the time. So we got that opportunity plenty. A couple of things that I like to use when this happens. First of all, you might recognize that as you're kind of coming up to the meditation time, maybe it is the time of day that you always set aside to meditate, or maybe it's just like, I am going nuts right now. I need to sit and calm myself down. You'll recognize that if you really have a busy mind, you are going to want to do something before actually meditating that is between busy monkey mind and meditation. And there's a lot of space in between this. Maybe it's practicing forms or meditation. Maybe it is like there are people who love to pray or light incense or have some kind of a ritual that helps you to kind of wind down before meditation. This is so useful. My personal favorite thing to do is I sit in the position that I'm going to meditate, in the posture that I'm going to keep, and then I count breaths. And I will actually count out the seconds to 5 to 10 seconds inhale, 5 to 10 seconds exhale. And I'm actually counting. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, because that is still thought, but it's much less thought than I had, but it's much more manageable to transform your consciousness from thinking about 1,000 things to thinking about one thing, counting the number of seconds in your breath, which still gives your brain something to do. You're giving your monkey mind a task to do. You're like, you're such a good monkey. Just sit there and count. Great job. And then after you've done that for 10 to 20 breaths, then you let go of it. You might notice that that wasn't enough. Your brain starts to go nuts again. So you might need to do that repetitively throughout your meditation. Rather than giving up on the meditation, just try to go back to counting breaths. This is one of many different things that you could do. Related things would be a visualization. Related things could be anything that you're kind of giving your mind as a little task to do. So recognize the distinction between that and meditation. So this is a breathing exercise. If I'm purposefully breathing deeply and counting the number of seconds in my breath, that's a breathing exercise, versus meditation, which is I'm just feeling the breath. And when my mind wanders to something else, then I just come back to the breath. In that case, if it's like a momentary thing, it's like a lapse, not like a full-on meltdown, but you've recognized your mind has wandered, then you can just label the thought by just saying in your mind, thought, and then you let it go. So there's no judgment. You're not riling yourself up. You're not starting to think like, how come I'm so terrible at meditation? Why can't I get this? You just say thought. That's it. You let it go. So you can try any and all of those things as we do this meditation right now. Sit comfortably. Do a quick review of posture. So you can sit cross-legged or seiza, depending on your flexibility. I only sit this way because my knees and my hips don't like seiza very much, or don't like being cross-legged very much. You want your hands at your hips, not sliding down. Unless you're sitting cross-legged and your hands are up high, that's okay. But you basically keep them here open or together. Either one is fine. You roll your shoulders back and relax. So if you are noticing that your shoulders are starting to slouch, especially if your hands are starting to slide down, this is not good posture. You're going to start falling asleep and your back is going to start to hurt. So roll the shoulders back and relax in that position. Your chin is parallel to the ground, and you can think of raising the crown of your head up towards the ceiling. That will help you to keep your good, straight, long spine. Close eyes. So from here, let's begin with a couple of deep breaths. And you're going to start with all the breath out. Breathe in for 5 seconds. Hold it for 3 seconds at the top. And exhale for 5 seconds. In. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Out. Make sure you're breathing in through the nose. Hold. Out through the nose or the mouth. In. Hold. Out. So you can keep doing that if you like. But at some point, you're going to let go of that breathing exercise and just watch the breath. Like an outside observer, there's no judgment. You're just feeling the sensation of the breath in and out through the nose, or you can feel the breath in the belly. When your mind wanders, bring it gently back to the breath. Be here now.